Good evening, everyone. This is the March 13th meeting of the City Council Zoning Subcommittee. This evening, we have one item on our agenda. It is CZ 17-01, an ordinance regulating recreational and medical marijuana facilities. I'm going to open this up to any city councilors that'd like to speak. We'll start at the end and work our way down. Councillor Giannino.
I'm not a member. I'd love to speak.
I'm just going to work our way right down.
Okay. As long as it stays in the TED district, I have no objection to that. It's already been established that that's the area that we have selected, and we as a community, the city councilors have selected to put an area within our city that would meet the provisions of the state law in case of a contest in the courts. Again, as I repeat myself, we had a previous experience with the Moonlight video, whereas the community was dead set against this type of activity where they're showing and selling adult movies. The city was completely against that, led by the mayor at the time, Mayor Colella. And we protested and we denied and we did everything we possibly could to prevent this from coming into our community. Lo and behold, they took us to the courts, and some years later, the City of Revere had to pay over $1 million in settlement to these individuals who had this because we violated their rights. And so, as thoughtful as it might be and as well as we might intend to keep this and prohibit this from our community, I think the safest guard for our city is to learn from the previous experience that we had, and a very costly one at that, that we're providing a certain area within our city that allows for this type of sale of product, this type of entertainment, and all that type of thing that goes with it. So we're given a provision within our community and saying, okay, if this is what you want to do, this is the designated area you could do it in. And through the test of the courts, and I know there might be some naysayers that say, we don't care, we'll go to court. Well, I do care because I experienced what the city had to pay over $1 million to our taxpayers that we could have used those funds for other purposes. I do care, and I have the knowledge of working with it firsthand. So I ask that this be accepted, that the TED district be on the special permit. And that, by the way, has a safeguard in itself. A special permit. You need 8 votes from this city council. A very important thing. 8 votes from the city council, and you also need the approval of the mayor who could veto this. And then we'll send it back to the city council. So there's provisions are in place, and I think that what we're doing is, I think we're doing it in a proper, professional manner in which to alleviate any problems that might come up through tests of the courts. And I think that everybody's rights will be given a full chance to exist within the community. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Giannino, for kicking off our meeting this evening while we got organized. So at this time, I'm just going to announce some of the meeting members that are here tonight. Councillor Keefe, McKenna, Powers, and Zambuto are the voting members in this committee. Councillor Rotondo is absent. I also want to thank Councillors Morbido, Giannino, Novoselsky, and Patch for attending. At this time, we're just going to go right down the line. So Councillor Patch, who's one of the voting members. All right, Keefe, looking at Charlie, talking about you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As everyone understands and knows, I have not been very much in favor of recreational marijuana in our city at all. I don't feel that there's a need for it. I continue to say that I think the more that we make this okay for everybody, the more okay we make it for the children of our city, that it's something that is okay, marijuana and marijuana products, something that, obviously we all understand leads to, we know this is a fact that it leads to other drugs, usually something that becomes more illicit. However, understanding that we're trying to get proactive and zone it properly, I'm at least encouraged that if we do pass this, and I would be in favor only, as I mentioned before, as a last case resort, if we needed to offer a site, that it would be in the TED district in that area where it would be not on Broadway, it would not be on Revere Beach Boulevard or the main traveled parts through. So this won't be in every area of our city that may be attractive to younger adults. One thing that, just reading today or in yesterday's paper, there was mentioned that liquor stores and package stores are liquor and alcohol retailers are looking to get into the recreational marijuana business. This would help prevent that as well, because the TED district is mostly in a warehouse area off the beaten path. So again, not in favor of any recreational marijuana facilities, but if we're going to have to zone for it to be proactive, I think we're doing a good job today, and I think we've done a good job in vetting this process, so that I would be good with the TED area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keefe. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Chairman. I'm not in favor of recreational marijuana either. As a school teacher of 32 years, we had a no tolerance policy. I would be in favor of it going into the TED zone just because of the fact that, for legal issues. But I'm not in favor of zoning this to 100 feet. I'm not in favor of that, and I've heard through the grapevine that there are people trying to get the zoning changed from 400 feet to 100 feet. And this is a critical area. It's abuts a marsh, the wetlands, and I am the president of the Friends of Belle Isle, and I would like to take a stand and say I am not in favor of changing the zoning from 400 to 100. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna, and I appreciate your input on a possible future issue, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Councillor Morabito.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'm not a supporter of having marijuana dispensaries or recreational marijuana facilities in our city or having any businesses like that. Us passing this can easily get misconstrued by people thinking, oh, the Revere City Council passed recreational use of marijuana. They're going to allow it. They want all these businesses coming into the city. They support it by voting for this. But we do not. Well, I do not. We have to have a special regulations for recreational use of marijuana businesses. This is all this law does. As my colleague mentioned earlier, our city was hit years ago with moonlight video, and we want to prevent this in the future. So it's very important and critical that we designate a zone for recreational use. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, this particular description has been tied into methadone clinics and our medical marijuana facilities. And I think it's still a great place to put them. I am in favor of this particular zoning change. I just have one question, but there's no one here to answer for me, is on the ACEC, which is an area of critical environmental concern. I don't know why they included that in this 400-foot line. I just don't know, so.
The only reason why I could assume that is because if it's a factory or some sort of large commercial development, it might have an impact on the environment due to pollution or something of that nature. That's like a stretch, but the only
I don't
idea
know.
that I might
It's-
have.
Yeah, because those areas are not near any homes, and, they're 5, 6, 7, 8,000 feet away from any particular home. But that's okay. It was just a concern of mine and just a thought. But the 400 feet shall stay. I feel very strongly about that. But I want everybody to realize that we're not approving whether or not, or denying whether or not recreational marijuana is going to come to Revere. that was already set by the voters, statewide, even though we voted against it, the City of Revere. We were only setting the rules for the location of them. And we are, again, protecting ourselves based on the story that Councillor Guanasso stated way back when on the TD video. The problem we had back then was, I wasn't on the council then, but the problem back then was that they made the rules while the application was still in process. See, now we're doing everything beforehand, we're setting the rules right off the bat. So, the council back then did make a mistake, it did cost them at the time, it cost the city at the time, but I feel very strongly about this, we are protecting ourselves, and I will be voting in favor of this particular zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patch.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree with basically what most of my colleagues have said before me here. I am strongly against recreational marijuana. Voted that way, and like the majority of Revere people did. Unfortunately, it's our job to, we have to abide by the state again, like we did in the past with the medical marijuana. I think we did a pretty good job establishing the only place that it really could be put, so I think it's important that we follow that route with the recreational marijuana. We can't stop it from coming into the city, but we can certainly prevent where it's put. So I think we ought to make sure that this gets through. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Patch, and then Councillor Powers, followed by Councillor Zambuto, who are both voting members.
Thank you, Madam President, or Madam Chairwoman, okay? I remember the days also of the moonlight video wars, of the mayor coming up here and telling us we had to approve an expenditure for a bond of over $1 million. And I couldn't help but think back then, what $1 million would have done for this city, maybe in sidewalks and things like that we get calls for every day, and we just don't have the funding to make that happen, or whatever funding we do have is limited and restricted. And I know there are pros and cons within the medical community and the general public about whether or not medical marijuana it works or it doesn't work. Some people want it, some people don't want it. I know the residents of this city didn't want it. However, we've got a situation here where we have to pick a place, and I think we've done that, the TED district. If there's any place you want it, or any place it has to be, it certainly should be in an area where it can be controlled to some degree, limited, security-wise, et cetera, et cetera. I certainly would not want to see this sold in package stores, before you know it, to be convenience stores and that type. And people say, well, that's not going to happen. Well, that could happen. That could happen very easily. So again, I think if you're going to put it in any one place, it has to be in the TED district, and it has to be limited to that district. And not put us in a position where down the road, someone can say, well, you denied a place for it, and now we're going to sue the city for $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, whatever the case may be. So again, I'm not happy with this, but I think it is somewhat in the best interest of the city. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Councillor Powers. Councillor Zambuto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Is it chairman or chairwoman? I think it's chairman, even though you're a female.
Either works. I feel like
Okay.
it's neutral.
You're changing.
Well, we want to make sure we give the respect to the chair. Anyways, little levity here. I appreciate my colleague from Ward 3 reminding us of what happens here when we don't act preemptively and protect ourselves. And had I been on the council, I like to think that I would have tried to be a voice of reason and not go down that road, even though I would have been against that use that we were trying to protect against. This is a perfect example of taking action ahead of what could potentially be a problem. Now, I got to say out front, not only was I against recreational marijuana, I campaigned against it. I worked hard against it. I actually worked with the governor to try to prevent it, and we didn't win, unfortunately. And so now we're pretty much stuck with it, and hopefully the law can be tweaked in such ways that there's some protection, but, you know, it's a bad thing. I mean, recreational marijuana is not good in any way, as far as I'm concerned. I work with people that are addicted and try to help them, and almost everybody starts by smoking pot. And so, anyhow, that being said, I think that this was really a good job in zoning something that we have to have, and I think and I kind of agree with my colleague that I don't know why the ACEC is in here, and I don't see how it could. I guess maybe there's some runoff from the factory. I don't know, but I'm optimistic. I could strike that, but the rest of this thing is I think done well, and I certainly will support it tonight, and hopefully we can move forward here and keep our fingers crossed that everything goes well with recreational marijuana, because it's going to come here probably in our lifetime. So we're stuck with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. At this time, I'm going to have the clerk read some recommendations that were submitted to the committee.
This is a recommendation from the Planning Board relative to an ordinance regulating recreational marijuana facilities. Dear members, pursuant to Section 17.56.050 of the Revised Revere Zoning Ordinance, the Planning Board, at a special meeting held on February 28th, 2017, subsequent to a public hearing held on February 28th, 2017, voted to favorably recommend the adoption of a proposed zoning amendment defining and regulating recreational marijuana facilities within the TED district by special permit.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do any other councilors have any questions on this matter? Well, perfect. We'll call a roll on this. Councillor Keefe?
Yes.
Councillor McKenna?
Yes.
Councillor Powers?
Yes.
Councillor Zambuto?
Yes.
And Councillor Rotondo is absent. So the zoning subcommittee recommends this favorably to the city council, and will attach the recommendation of the planning board. This adjourns the meeting of the zoning subcommittee for March 13th, and we'll meet next when necessary.
That's going to happen.